So folks, if you're showing your screen tonight to show a presentation, be sure that when you're done, that you shut your presentation off so that we return to the main screen. We've had some staff that just leave their presentation up and sharing the screen, and then when council begins debate, the public can't see the council debating. Thank you.
Marty or Kirsten, if you can hear me, you'll need to change Gwen from my name. She came in under my invite, just as a heads up.
I don't see that I have the power to do that in the controls right now.
Yeah, Marty, I don't seem to have that capacity either. Marty and Kirsten, we're T-minus 1 minute. Are we going to be ready?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you can change my name. I had to get in on Brian's link.
Gwen, can you change your own name? We can't do it for you administratively. Neither the mayor or I can do it.
Okay. Where am I now?
Marty, did you hear my question?
Mute my audio. Stop.
So would you like me to do that? I assume you would.
Mayor, this is Kirsten. I'm just presenting today, so I'm not present there in council chambers.
No worries at all.
She's not going to turn around and say, "Oh, well."
Hey, Marty, if you can hear me, would you please acknowledge same?
Yes, she is disabled, or no, I partially favor decision. I don't.
You are muted.
We can hear you, Mariangan.
All right. Did you hear my question about whether you would be ready to go at 6?
I'm sorry. Yes, it's Kara and I doing the meeting tonight for adminning, and we are ready for you.
Okay, terrific.
Gwen, I will resend you a link that's unique to you that you can use to join the meeting if you wish.
That would be great. I'm just going to exit out of the meeting. I'll be back shortly. Sorry about that.
Well, that's the thing. If you don't want me to do this.
And I will call the Missoula City Council meeting of August 10th, 2020 to order. We have all council members present except Ms. West. I believe that's correct. Is anyone else missing?
I think Mayor Heather is having difficulty logging in.
Okay, and Ms. Harp is missing. We'll make sure we add her to the roll when she appears, and Ms. Jones will be rejoining us momentarily. We have no minutes.
Mayor Engen, can you wait just a minute? I need to get these invitations in and I can't admin the e-scribe part of the meeting while I'm doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're good to go, Mayor Engen.
Thank you very much. With that, we will be back in order, waiting for a couple of council members to join us, and I'll let you know when they do. We have no minutes, as I mentioned before, to approve this week, but we do have a schedule of committee meetings. Ms. Rapine. And while we're waiting for Ms. Rabine, please let the record note that Ms. Hart has joined us.
All right, thanks, Mary Engen. This week we only have 2 committee meetings. They're both being conducted virtually as Zoom webinars. The first meeting is a Public Works Committee meeting. It's meeting at 1 o'clock to 1:30. The Budget Committee of the Whole will follow 20 minutes later. It starts at 1:50 and goes till 3:05. If folks want to register to attend these meetings via Zoom webinar, they can go to www.missoulapublicmeetings.com. There is a site that's hosted by Zoom that lists all of the city's public meetings, and you can register for both or one of these committee meetings. And I think that's everything. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. And just one more time for the record, all council members except Ms. West are present at this time. We will move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. This is general public comment. Comment on agenda items will take place later in the meeting under those particular agenda items. So general public comment, if you raise your hand in the attendees room, as it were. And please remember, we're going to hold it to 3 minutes this evening. Mr. Larson.
Yes, City Council, Mayor, and City Attorney, and everybody. Hello. I am coming to you tonight to comment about some unusual activity I have noticed recently with the Missoula Police Department. It started a few weeks ago with the buying of a bunch of AR-15 rounds by the Missoula Police Department, which I've been told now is part of a collective bargaining agreement between the police union and the Missoula Police Department. That collective bargaining agreement, as far as my conversations with Assistant Police Chief Scott Hoffman, is not being followed, in my opinion. And I have forwarded this matter to my City Council Representative Gwen Jones, Jesse Ramos, and the City Attorney for further interpretation of this collective bargaining agreement. I have not received any messages back from Jim Nugent. And the problem is this, I believe. There are written into the agreement safety protocol to prevent the officers from hoarding ammunition and to be only using it for official target practice and bona fide practice events. Those protocols that are written into the agreement, I do not believe are being followed. And I've requested spreadsheets to determine if this is being followed. And as far as my understanding is concerned, I believe it to be, the spreadsheet should be a per bullet, per officer accurate spreadsheet. It is not. It is essentially a checklist which shows officers are allowed to walk out of the building with ammo unaccounted for and only accounting for the consumed ammo by returning only the used casings. This led me down the path of just searching and talking to my friend groups about what's been going on in the city and stuff that they may have observed with Missoula Police Department. And I found some startling results. On July 26th, 3 of my friends were exiting downtown at 5 a.m. on the Orange Street Bridge when someone called in or observed them and reported them throwing a body off the bridge. This is a pretty extreme event. So a black truck arrived on the scene with a law enforcement officer that has not been identified. And they asked where the 4th person was on the bridge, who my friends had allegedly thrown off. There was no 4th person. My friends produced ID and tried to engage officers peacefully and asked for their names and information and in return for their own names and information. And through checking with Lori Clark at the police department, there is an incident and report number, but no written report of this incident. So they do have notes, but no written incident report, and it was classified as unfounded. The investigation also involved the launching of a life flight from the hospital to search for a body down under the bridge.
And that's 3 minutes, Mr. Larson.
Can I extend? I just have a little bit more.
We'll hear about this next week. And Theo Gibbs, you have 3 minutes.
All right. Hello, City Council. Hello, Mayor. Thank you for taking your time with me today. My name is Theo Gibbs. I'm the founder and the director of the Accountability Badge Corporation. On May 25th, George Floyd's life was taken from him at the hands of Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. The nation went into an uproar saying that we wanted police to be held accountable and we wanted to change the way that we interact with law enforcement. I saw the need from the nation and I took that to creating a change right here in Missoula. And what I did is I took an NFC chip, I put it inside of a police badge. So now when a citizen has an interaction with the law enforcement officer, the officer can not only ask for their information, but that citizen can ask for their badge information and receive real credible information back from that request. The citizen can simply ask for the badge information. The officer takes off their Velcro badge, holds it up to the window of the vehicle or holds it in their hand. The citizen would then tap their phone onto the badge or the window of their vehicle, instantly receiving a picture of the officer, a picture of the supervisor, badge information for both. The option to rate and report the officer. This goes to a third-party company who sorts through all of that data and submits the negative reports and the positive reports to the supervising department within the agency for them to be able to review those reports. After speaking with thousands of law enforcement officers over the past few months, I've learned that the majority of interactions with police are actually positive interactions, but unfortunately the news media shows them all as negative interactions. We need to be able to change that, and I believe that our product can help to do that for society, starting here in Missoula, Montana.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. And Fred Jones, you're with the City Council. Fred Jones, can you hear us?
Yeah, I guess it was on mute.
Oh, there you go with that.
Anyway, yeah, thank you, Mayor Egan and the city council for this opportunity. I'm Fred Jones in Missoula for 30 years and recently retired, joined the accountability badge team and to serve as chief financial officer. We are, as you probably heard, a hometown corporation, and we want to support our leaders and in particular, specifically our police that protect and serve our community. And we'd like to supply this product and service that was described by Mr. Gibbs for a free of charge for an indefinite period of time. Normally it would be approximately $16,000 a year, but we would like to show our support and be supportive of those who serve us. And we want to show respect for those who serve by contributing what we can from the Accountability Corporation, created to build best relationships between the public and our police. And we thank you for your time and consideration of this product and service.
Thank you, Mr. Jones and Mr. Gibbs. I'd suggest having a conversation with Chief Jason White and let him know what you're thinking. I have caller. Sorry, my screen is not allowing me to see. Caller 55222, which could be a staff member.
Mayor Engen, I think the last 4 digits of that phone number are 2837.
Oh, thank you. Caller with the last 4 digits, 2837.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yes, I'm Jay Stanford. I'm calling in to support an increase in funding for the Missoula Police Department. I'm a 30-year resident of Missoula and a property taxpayer. What Police Chief White is asking for is a modest increase in their funding. The money will be used for training, for PPE safety equipment to protect our officers from exposure to COVID-19, for 2 additional officers, for body cameras and cameras for interview rooms, and to purchase a ballistic helmet for each officer. The helmets are not one size fits all. They're sized to fit each individual officer. Chief White has made it clear the helmets will not be worn during routine patrol duty. They're only to be worn in situations where there's a serious risk of head injury. His request includes a small amount to install a shower in their existing bathroom and for half lockers in part of their existing break room, so his officers will have a place to shower and store their uniforms before going home to their families. I think his requests are reasonable, and as someone who pays property taxes that pay the bills, I don't mind paying a little more to keep our officers safe, and so Missoula will remain a safe place to live, to work, and for our children to go to school. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stanford. And Mr. Decker.
My name is Josh Decker. I'm a resident of Ward 1. Thanks for taking my comment, Council, Mayor. I'm a Black Lives Matter supporter, and one of the core tenets of the Black Lives Matter movement is defunding the police. The reason that is true, at least in part, is because the opinions of police have been taken into account many times over, and police comment and police opinion is existing in a form that outweighs that of the public. We've witnessed that already this evening. We have folks commenting on the matter from inside the city offices. And I would like, as we move into the public comment period surrounding the budget issues that will be happening later, I'd like folks to take into account that Officer Patrick Erbacher is running a campaign to muster support for police budget increases. We need to put our finger on the scale and operate under the assumption of a progressive stack in a way. We need to weigh the opinions of the public more heavily than we do those of the officers that are affected. Officers that are, in fact, have been investigated for violence against minority members in our community. So I would ask that the council make some determination on the legitimacy of comment as it comes from inside city offices or is mustered by the police department itself in support of budgetary matters. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. And I just want to clarify, a lot of our city numbers have that 552 prefix, but Mr. Stanford is not a city staffer. He just happens to have a phone number that starts with 552. So that call was not a city employee. Jim Kinsey.
Hello, City Council and Mayor Egdon. Thank you guys for having me on tonight. I am the CMO here at the Accountability Badge Corporation. I was brought on recently by Theo Gibbs, the founder and inventor of this new technology that we're bringing right out of Missoula, Montana. I'm an award-winning filmmaker and conservationist. I produce television for a living, and I put a ton of money into the economy here locally. And after 21 years of producing, I have never seen technology like this brought to the market space. So right now, we are working with a PR firm out of LA called Lobeline. All eyes are on Missoula. We're going to be bringing in some of the heaviest influencers like The Rock Johnson, Dan Aykroyd, people of that nature. They're all getting behind what we're doing here with the technology that'll help police officers come home at the end of the day safer. It'll be where the citizens and the police together can both, shake hands at the end of the day, and all through this near field communication technology. So monetarily fee would normally be $16,000 a year. We're giving it to you guys pretty much free indefinitely to get this thing off the ground. But we've got incredible following behind us right now. A lot of people are looking at Missoula. It's going to create a ton of jobs. And that's one of the things. We're bringing info technology right here to Zootown, and all eyes will be right here. So we really want to get the city council and you guys behind it, take a look at what we have. And we'd love to meet with you at another time if we could. So what we're doing is we're validating accountability globally, and it all starts right here in Missoula, Montana.
Thank you, sir. So we're teetering dangerously on an infomercial here, and I'd ask if there's anyone else representing the company. We appreciate your comments, but I think we've gotten the point, and I think a conversation with Chief White is in order so that he can understand a little bit about what your product is. So thank you. Ms. Housel.
Yes, Andy Housel, Ward 2. Good evening. Thank you for taking my comment. I just, I can't even begin to express the disgust I feel about the capitalist sales pitch we just got to hear from a number of different callers. Just a reminder that policing historically is designed, the basic framework is to protect the capitalist interests of the powerful elites and to uphold a system of white supremacy. That's the purpose of policing. I know we're going to get to specific budget issues, but we only get 3 minutes and these meetings run real long. So let me just say first that these are reforms that we should not be funding. Reforms that allocate more money to the police, i.e. those that the mayor has proposed. Reforms that advocate more policing, even under terms like community policing, such as the addition of an officer solely to focus on our unhoused community. reforms that are primarily focused on technology. This involves cameras. This involves whatever the heck that dude is selling. Technology is not going to change the racist undertones of policing, and reforms that are focused on individual dialogues with cops that are funded by tax dollars. There are so many other things in this community that we can in fact fund. And I have a specific comment on the locker room. I watched 4 and at other moments in the same exchange, 6 of our Missoula Police Department officers arresting a single man outside of St. Patrick's Hospital at approximately 11:30 or 12 midnight a few nights ago. Not a single one of those officers was wearing a face mask. So if our tax dollars are asked to give additional funding to the police department so they can be safe, so they can shower off, so they can leave their uniforms, I ask that when they are interfacing with the public, including young people on the bridge, on the Madison Street footbridge, or this gentleman who just came out of the hospital on that street, that they at least do the very basics that are mandated by the Missoula County Health Department and that are recommended by the CDC. These are basic things. You're trying to convince me that they also deserve or need or whatever the word is, all this extra, but they can't even have the common decency to wear a freaking face mask when interfacing with the public. It's insane. I'd like you to look at why you actually want to sit across from Chief White and introduce his ideas and his request for additional funding, Mr. Mayor, that you did not do for any other department across the city. Because there are other reasons that are not being clearly, that we're not being transparent about here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hausel. All right, seeing no additional general public comment this evening, we will move on with our agenda to our consent agenda. Items here were approved in council committees, and we save a little time on Monday evenings by considering these items all at once. Ms. Rabine will read the list of consent agenda items, and we will take comment before we vote. Ms. Rabine.
Okay, Mayor Engen, tonight's consent agenda has 6 items. The first, as always, is to approve claims. Those are the city's accounts payable. And this week, they are in the amount of $2,131,723.70 for checks that are dated August 11th, 2020. Number 2 is the first reading and preliminary adoption of an ordinance. Tonight, we're setting a public hearing on August 24th of 2020. Preliminarily adopting an ordinance that rezones 508 South 3rd Street West, legally described as Lot 11 in Block 32 of the Knowles Edition number 1, from C1-4 Neighborhood Commercial /DE-C, which is a Design Excellence Corridor Typography 2 zoning district, to C1-4 Neighborhood Commercial Design Excellence Corridor Typology 2 zoning district with an adaptive reuse overlay. So basically the same underlying zoning with an adaptive reuse overlay zoning district on it. Based on the findings of fact that are in the staff report and referring this ordinance to the Land Use and Planning Committee, the committee will be having a presentation prior to the public hearing, but won't take any action on August 19th of 2021. That property is located in section 21, township 13, North Range, 19 west of Missoula. Number 3 is the first reading and preliminary adoption of another ordinance. We're setting a public hearing on August 24th, 2020. On a preliminarily adopting an ordinance rezoning 2920 Expo Parkway, legally described as Government Lot 4 and Portion B of Certificate of Survey number 4831 and amended Tract A of Certificate of Survey 3750, and portion C of Certificate of Survey 4831, and portion A of Commerce Center Phase 2, amended in Section 5, Township 13 North, Range 19 West, from R.5.4 residential, RM1-35 residential multi-dwelling, B2-2 community business, and C1-4 neighborhood commercial to RM145, which is a residential multi-dwelling zoning district. And the council tonight is referring that ordinance to the Land Use and Planning Committee for a presentation prior to the hearing with no action again on August 19th of 2020. Number 4 is to adopt a resolution vacating a 14-foot wide by 32 feet long public utility easement across lots 7 and block 9 of the mill site subdivision phase 1 Wyoming North. And number 5 is to adopt a resolution vacating a 50-foot wide public utility easement adjacent to lot 11 and 12 block 60 of the South Missoula addition. And number 6 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign an amendment to the city's agreement with Eastscribe Incorporated with a one-time expenditure of $2,500 and ongoing costs of $14,450 annually. The first year of expenses are reimbursable under the CARES Act to increase the city's capacity to webcast virtual public meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Questions or comments from council members? Ms. Merritt.
I would just like to note for the record that I'll be abstaining from voting on item 5.4. That's the mill site one, right? Yes, 5.4.
And Mr. Hess.
Thanks. I received an inquiry today about the Expo Parkway, the proposed rezone, and I want to make it clear that tonight is the setting of a public hearing, which is to provide the petitioner their opportunity to present their case to us, which is their right. This is not an action in support. This is simply setting a public hearing. And I just want to make that really clear on the record because I think there was a little bit of confusion swirling around that. Just so everyone's aware, we will have a lengthy, probably 3-hour Land Use and Planning Committee meeting next Wednesday, and that on the 19th. And that'll be a pre-public hearing where there'll be an opportunity to hear additional information and provide comment. And then the public hearing will be on August 24th. And that hearing, based on our multi-week hearing process right now, that hearing will remain open until September 14th. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I just wanted to clear that up in case anyone was watching and had questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Seeing no additional questions or comments from council members. In the audience, I have 4 folks. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a conversation about the consent agenda. If you have comments regarding other agenda items this evening, this isn't the time for them. And Mr. Vesperman.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I hope you don't mind. I raised my hand earlier, but I think the comment section earlier just got cut off a little abruptly. So I hope you'll excuse me for commenting not on this one agenda item. I just wanted to say I'm a resident of Ward 4, and I just wanted to express again my support for reducing our police budget this year. I think that it's really important for us to think about public safety in a much larger and more holistic way than we are right now. And, you know, when we talk about public safety, it means everyone in our community. And I think what we've heard over the past months and weeks and years is that the police aren't doing the job of protecting everyone. And they aren't doing the job of even helping in all the situations that we're asking them to, because they're not trained for that, because that's not what police have been designed for from the beginning. So I really, again, think we need to minimize the role of police in Missoula. And I urge you to just reach deeply into yourselves and question sort of what what is personally at stake in this issue for you and for your family and for your community, and maybe what's holding you back personally and what you need to do to get to a place where we can build a community that's better for everyone. I would love to talk personally to anyone on the council more about this. I think as Mayor Engen, as you aptly put it, the infomercial is irrelevant. I don't think any technological fixes would have saved George Floyd or Philando Castile or Breonna Taylor. They died because of the malformed and disgusting role that police have been designed to play in our society right now. And it's up to us on a local level to be the ones to change that. So again, and just as a final note, I'm not thoroughly educated about the budget process in Missoula, but I'd really love to know like in what ways we could introduce amendments about specific line items in the police budget, like how specifically this process could work to reduce the budget and what steps that would look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Festerman. And Zachary Scott on the consent agenda. Zachary Scott.
Hi, I'm sorry, I had some problems there. Good evening, City Council. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak tonight. My name is Zachary Scott. I'm a 10-year resident of Missoula. I appreciate Mr. Hess's comments just prior to this consent agenda regarding 2920 Expo Parkway and the motion. However, I would like to point out that tonight's motion includes a preliminary adoption of that motion and of that rezone request. And for that reason, I would like to point out further the City Council Rule 12 states that the consent agenda is a time when non-controversial agenda items may be considered and approved by the City Council. Well, I think most of us would agree that this particular rezone request or application is controversial. The controversy I would like to address specifically relates to protest petitions provided under Title 20 that were supplied to the city 10 days ago. And under that provision of city ordinance, a 2/3 majority of the City Council is required for any approval of this rezone application. And for that reason, I was respectfully request that the council consider striking the quote preliminary adoption of tonight's motion with respect to 2920 Expo Parkway. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. And sorry, I'm catching up with myself here a little bit. Leticia Romero.
Hi, yes. I'm sorry. I was also cut off a little bit early in the public comment section earlier. I wanted to just also echo Andy's sentiments and thoughts on the budget. I think that our community can be a lot more creative in creating safety and community well-being, health-wise, mental and spiritual. And I'm going off also, again, the mayor's saying that the budget is a reflection of community values. And I really am pushing for every city council member and the mayor to question themselves, what are those values? 19 million for the police compared to 2.2 million for housing and community development. That's just a big difference there. And why is one more important than the other? Right now, there's working class people that can't even live here in the city. And they're working their butts off 2 to 3 jobs just to try to pay rent or even try to buy a house. And so more money should be allocated towards housing and community development, and also being more creative than just buying more gear or buying more or building more a shower, locker room. That money can be used elsewhere in a more creative way. I'm an Army veteran, and I know I will keep saying this, that when we used to get like new gear, it was like a cool thing, right? Like it's stuff that we didn't really need. Like the stuff that we already had worked really well, and I don't feel like we need to be buying new everything. So I'm sure that some of the gear that the police department has now can still be continued to be used, and that money can go instead to community wellness. And that's all. I just wanted to just really push the creativity on our city, like to think outside the box. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero. And Mr. Larson on the consent agenda.
Yes, so I'd like to bring up some items from the invoices and claims, and also congratulate the majority of the city council minus Ramos and his cohorts for rubber stamping more this week, spending more this week than you're going to spend in the entire 2021 budget that you proposed on affordable housing and community-based services. The things in the invoices I would like to draw attention to is the general fact that the description of the items in the invoices has been getting more and more generic and less attributed to individual departments where the requested paid for equipment or services is to be delegated. This is a very, very apparent in this week's invoices and claims with the Adobe licenses that are attributed to the Information and Technology Department for $19,000. It does not show how many licenses there are or what computers those live on, i.e. what departments those licenses are actually attributed to. The other item I would like to draw attention to is the the finance department buying an iPhone application for $60,000 with maintenance agreements so that they can provide us the same numbers with the same lack of accountability or insight. I'd like to also direct the public to a letter that was written to the editor in 2018 in the Missoulian. This letter is called Accountability for Accounting, and it is written by one of the former auditors of the city and county. I believe it to be very insightful and very relevant to the current budget woes. The next thing I'd like to comment on the consent agenda about is to compel the entire city council to vote no against the development at Grant Creek, to not follow Aaron Peahan's same directives, which often push for mega development, which does not and is not congruent with the current values of our city. We were sold the Place to Make Home housing plan as just that, something that would be thoughtfully implemented with consideration to the community at large, consideration for values that we have, such as traveling on roads that are maintained, having schools that are maintained, having services that are available and abundant and adequate. But these are factors that are not being taken into account when it concerns this development and many other developments which the city characterizes and the city council characterizes as quote unquote affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Larson. And I have no additional commenters in the attendees, and we'll have a roll call vote.
First vote will be on the consent agenda without item number 4. And Anderson.
Marty, you basically didn't come through with what you said, that we're voting the consent agenda breakout.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I said we're doing the consent agenda, and I will note the abstention on item number 4. So we don't have to do a separate vote. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Contos.
Yes.
Harp.
Yes.
Hess.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Vasika.
Yes.
Von Lossberg.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 11 ayes and 1 absent on items 1, 2, 3, and 5 and 6, and 10 ayes, 1 abstention on, and 1 absent on item 4.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. We have no comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, authorities, or the community forum this evening, nor do we have any special presentations. We have a number of public hearings, and state law and our own council rules set guidelines for inviting comment in a formal way on a variety of issues, and following the staff report on each of these, we will invite comment. Council will hold the public hearing open from this evening for 1 week or until its next regularly scheduled council meeting, with the exception of the budget public hearing, which will go on through August 31st. So public comment can be offered tonight and throughout the week, and will close next week. Our first public hearing this evening is on a phased development at Cowboy Flats, and our staff report this evening comes from Ms. McCray. I saw Ms. McCray earlier.
There we go.
There you are.
Good evening. I've shared my screen. Can you see the screen for the slide presentation?
We can, thank you.
Okay. Mary McCray with Development Services. Development Services has received written notice from Door Lane LLC, represented by John Kellogg of PCI Incorporated, of intent to file phase 2 of Cowboy Flat subdivision. This is an action item for City Council this evening. The property is located on the east side of Door Lane along 38th Street. Phase 2 is outlined in blue, and Cowboy Flat subdivision is outlined in yellow on this slide. At its regularly scheduled meeting on November 6, 2017, the Missoula City Council voted to approve the preliminary plat for Cowboy Flat subdivision in 2 phases, subject to 20
I
conditions.
lived in the Harry Potter streets.
The phase 1 final plat was filed June 28, 2018. For phase development per Montana Code Annotated 76-3617 subsection 4, the governing body shall determine whether anything has changed, regulations, or new information since the time the subdivision received preliminary plat approval, when each phase is submitted for final plat review. Phase development review is required by state law, which stipulates a statutory deadline requiring the public hearing and decision by City Council within 30 working days of when notice to file the phase is received. The deadline for City Council action on Phase 2 is August 12th, 2020. This slide includes a graphic of Phase 2 of Cowboy Flat subdivision. It will complete the connection of 38th Street to the east with Door Lane to the west. The phase development review for Phase 2 of Cowboy Flat subdivision considers whether new regulations have been adopted or new information exists that would invalidate the findings of fact of the preliminary plat approval of the subdivision based on the following primary review criteria in state law. Compliance with the zoning and subdivision is in accordance with the growth policy. The effects of the subdivision on agriculture and agriculture water users. Whether local services such as roads, active transportation facilities, water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure, fire and law enforcement services, parks and recreation facilities, solid waste service, and schools are available to serve the subdivision. The effects of the subdivision on the natural environment, wildlife, and wildlife habitat, and the effects of the subdivision on public health and safety, which covers hazards such as flooding, unstable soils, steep slopes, and high groundwater. Local services was the only primary review criteria where new regulations have been adopted since preliminary plat approval of the subdivision. City Council adopted new stormwater regulations, which became effective on April 8th, 2020. The new regulations incorporate DEQ Circular 8 regulations adopted in 2017. Public Works Stormwater Division staff commented that Phase 2 of Cowboy Flats needs to comply with the erosion control and stormwater standards in the updated Missoula Municipal Code 13.27. Staff received one public comment today from a property owner on 36th Street. The comment was emailed to City Council. The adjacent property owner objected to the following. I thought I'd summarize it since you may not have had time to read that email or that public comment. He stated the developers proposed one-level homes. Two of the homes built in Phase 1 are loft homes, which he feels is similar in height to a two-story home. He feels the loft homes are out of character with adjacent one-level homes, and he would like City Council to restrict development in Phase 2 to one-level homes. So I'd like to just discuss the context of that public comment. Cowboy Flats subdivision and the adjacent property to the north where this resident lives is zoned R5.4 residential. The maximum height in this zoning district is 30 feet or 35 feet with a roof pitch of 8 and 12 or greater. This height is permitted in all areas of the city with the R5.4 zoning. The subdivision was reviewed for compliance with zoning. All the lots are 5,400 square feet or greater, and one dwelling unit is permitted on each lot. So per the zoning standards, homes are not restricted to one level in the R5.4 zoning district. So condition of approval number 15 in the amended conditions document was amended to incorporate the stormwater staff recommendation shown on this slide, and the language outlined that's bold and underlined is the new language. It states Phase 2 of Cowboy Flats subdivision shall comply with the requirements for erosion control and stormwater in the updated Stormwater Management Code, MMC 13.27, subject to review and approval of City Public Works Stormwater Division prior to filing the Phase 2 final plat. And staff recommends approval of Phase 2 of Cowboy Flats subdivision based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval as amended. And that's my presentation. John Kellogg of PCI is here tonight, and he may have some comments.
Thank you, Ms. McRae. And if I could ask you to take your presentation down. And Mr. Kellogg, If you'd like to speak on behalf of
Thank
the
you.
applicant, please do.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Engen and members of council. For the record, I'm John Kellogg with Professional Consultants, speaking on behalf of Door Lane LLC. I wanted to thank Ms. McCrae for the thorough review of this second phase of the development. And while we cringe at the concept of additional conditions on a subdivision, we have already been vetted through the Public Works Department of the city, and they have found that our grading and drainage plan is compliant with the additional condition. I wanted to bring up at LUP meeting last week, I believe it was Councillor Jones mentioned the question of whether the short courts are working out for folks that are moving in. And I think I indicated that what I had heard is that generally the comments are favorable. I had a chance to talk to Gene Mostad in between that meeting and this, and Gene reinforced that sentiment that the residents that he's spoken with are strongly in favor of the short court design. They like the privacy of the short courts. It's an excellent option for flexible design, and we're quite proud of the layout of Cowboy Flats, and we think it's a very successful development for infill in Missoula. So I'd like to, I would hope that you would be able to approve this second phase of the development, and I'd be able to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. With that, I will open the public hearing, and I apologize. I realized that we were bumping up against statutory deadline in the case of Cowboy Flats. So while we would normally wait a week, we need to vote on this evening. Folks, if you're able to mute, we've got some background noise coming from somewhere. And public hearing is open. I see no attendees who are interested in speaking to this. So I will close the public hearing and take questions from council members. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Engen. And I just, I did read that comment from a constituent of mine in regards to their concern about the two-story. And whereas the intent or what they had, the developer had said that they were hoping to build one story, there was no conditions put on that first. I'm just wanting to confirm that we have, that I have the information correct, that there was no conditions put on that, that it's just literally they can have up to 35 feet. And if it's in a one-story home with a 35-foot roof, or a loft, or two-story home, the 35-foot is the trigger within that zoning district. It's not necessarily stories. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. I just wanted to reiterate that.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Hess.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of phase 2 of the Cowboy Flats subdivision based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, and subject to the conditions of approval as amended. And I'd like to just speak briefly to the motion.
Mr. Hess.
Thanks. This is a subdivision, a traditional subdivision, which we don't see a lot of anymore in an era of a lot of other land use approval projects. I think this is a testament to the subdivision review process that we have a project that has been, phase 1 as permitted under state law has been deployed. It's going well. Phase 2 is ready to be filed. So I appreciate, Mr. Mostad and Mr. Kellogg's work to deploy this development. I want to highlight that we're really only here in this way reviewing conditions because of a change in state law. And I think that creates some frustrations for a number of parties, but it is what it is. But again, I just appreciate that this is a relatively straightforward, relatively traditional neighborhood type development, and it is an exhibit of our subdivision regulations working at their best. I'm supportive.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. That motion's in order. Is there further discussion on the motion? I see no hands up. In that case, Ms. Rabine, we will have a roll call vote.
Thanks, Mayor Engen. On the motion to approve, Becerra.
Yes.
Contos.
Yes.
Park.
Yes.
Hess.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Vasika.
Yes.
Von Lossberg.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Any of you like to change your vote? That is 11 ayes and 1 absent.
And the motion is approved. Our second public hearing this evening is on annual assessments for Street Maintenance District Number 1. And Ms. Hands, are you presenting this evening?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Great. So I'm Kirsten Hand, Senior Deputy City Clerk in the City Clerk's office, and I have a brief presentation on a resolution levying an assessment on the properties in Street Maintenance District Number 1. And I wanted to remind everyone that there is a statutory deadline associated with the adoption of this resolution as well. So we will be taking the final vote tonight, and that was noticed in all of the legal notification for this public hearing. I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you, and here we go. That is the exhibit for the resolution, kind of line items out everything that we're going to be talking about tonight. So for a little history, Street Maintenance District Number 1 emerged from the Sprinkling District in the downtown area, and the Sprinkling Districts originally were established to sprinkle the dirt streets and alleys in the city with oil to keep dust down back in the day. Currently, Street Maintenance District Number 1 provides for additional street sweeping in the downtown area, which is performed by the city streets department, and waste and recycling removal in the area, which is performed by the Business Improvement District. So the portion of the assessment for street sweeping during fiscal year 2020, this last year, was $43,500. A 3% increase to this amount is proposed for fiscal year 2021 to cover increases in labor costs. This brings a portion of the assessment for additional street sweeping in the district during fiscal year 21 to $44,805. Additionally, during fiscal year 2020, we had a milder winter than usual, which allowed for more street sweeping in the district than what was typically performed. And this resulted in the fund going over budget by $9,902 during fiscal year 20. So we'll be adding this overage into the total assessment for fiscal year 2021 to true up the fund. The other aspect of this assessment is the Business Improvement District. And the BID is responsible for the waste and recycling portion of the district assessment. We had a 3-year contract with the Business Improvement District in the amount of $61,000 per year for maintenance of 86 waste and recycling cans in the downtown area. This contract expired on May 31st of this year. Over the course of this contract, the number of cans serviced by the Business Improvement District increased to 101. The Business Improvement District presented their proposed fiscal year 2021 budget in the City Council Budget Committee of the Whole on August 5th. During this presentation, the BID requested an additional $21,347 for the service provided in Street Maintenance District Number 1 to be included in the next service contract with the city. This would result in an increase to cover the additional cans during the time period of the last contract, as well as the additional cans that are to be placed around the new library and additional labor costs. This brings the total waste and recycling portion of the assessment for fiscal year 2021 to $82,347. And at the direction of the City Council during the Budget Committee of the Whole meeting on August 5th, this adjustment has been made to the resolution and to be attachment to the resolution that you see on your screen. The total assessment for street maintenance district for fiscal year 2021 includes the street sweeping assessment in the amount of $44,805 plus the $4,902 overage in the street sweeping for fiscal year 2020, along with the business improvement district waste and recycling request of $82,347. This brings the total fiscal year 2021 proposed assessment for the district to $132,054. And I do believe that Robert Giblin with the Missoula Downtown Partnership is also present on this meeting to answer any questions regarding the BID's portion of the assessment. And that is everything. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing.
Thank you, Ms. Hands. And with that, I will open the public hearing. And seeing no one wishing to comment, I will close the public hearing. And Ms. Becerra, I'm sorry, where does this live?
It was an A&F. I believe it's Gwen Jones.
My apologies. Ms. Jones.
Sorry, my second computer screen went dark. And I can't pull it back up. Hang on a second. Here we go. Oh, all right. I'll make the recommended motion that we adopt a resolution levying a special assessment and tax on the lots, pieces, and parcels of land situated within Street Maintenance District Number 1 of the City of Missoula, Montana, in the amount of $132,054 for the purpose of defraying the cost of street sweeping and removing garbage and recycling from streets and avenues in the district during the fiscal year 2020. And I'll speak to it briefly if that is acceptable.
Ms. Jones?
I'm not going to go into great detail, but this has been thoroughly vetted and there's a lot of support for this from the downtown. There have been requests for additional recycling and sweeping, and this is addressing that as they've had increased needs. So I'm in support of it and thank you for bringing it.
Thank you. That motion is in order. Is there discussion on the motion? I'm sorry, Mr. Giblin, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to note that both Linda McCarthy, the Executive Director of the Downtown Partnership, and BID Board Member Ellen Buchanan are also in attendance for this meeting.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will have a roll call vote.
Okay, on this round, we start with Contos on the resolution.
No.
Harp.
Yes.
Hess.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Ramos.
No.
Carroll.
Yes.
Basika.
No.
Von Lossberg.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? 8 ayes, 3 nays, and 1 absent.
Mr. Mayor.
Heidi West is here.
I will note for the record that Ms. West is here. That motion is approved. Our final public hearing, and I know that we're not voting on this one tonight. We're going to be right about one of these, is on the fiscal year 2021 budget. Mr. Bickle, our Chief Administrative Officer, is going to share his screen. We now have our final revenue numbers from the state of Montana, which allows us to make some actual recommendations to you based on real numbers. Mr. Bickle, if you'd be so kind as to kick it off.
Good evening,
She
Neil
given the name of
Bickle,
it.
City's
She
Chief
doesn't exist for the
Administrative
motion.
Officer.
So
Before
about that.
we get into the meat of the presentation, I'm going to just go through what the budget process here and what the public hearings are about, and go through the calendar and a brief discussion on where you can find the information, and then I'll turn it back over to the mayor to discuss what specifically is in the FY21 budget. And you can see the screen okay, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So there are a number of resolutions to adopt our budget. The first set of resolutions are the appropriations resolutions. These are the resolutions that actually fix the amount of expenditures, both in the operations budgets for all of the city departments and the capital improvement program for the city. This also includes related entities such as the Tourism Business Improvement District, the Business Improvement District that works downtown, Park District number 1, and Road District number 1. The public hearings also are for the tax levy resolution, which is the resolution that actually levies the taxes that pays for the appropriations in the previous resolutions. And that tax levy resolution also includes the separate resolution for the permissive medical levy that's help support the city's health insurance program. Also part of the budget process are the fee resolutions. There are 3 resolutions that increase certain fees, including fire inspection, plan checking and pyrotechnic display, special event fees, and fingerprinting from our public safety organizations. Wastewater industrial interceptor variance permit fee and other wastewater permit fees proposed to be increased 3%. Our land use application fees, business licensing, vegetation removal, engineering fees from development services are proposed to increase 3%. And cemetery fees are proposed to increase 4% based on a recommendation from the cemetery board. Just a quick update on the budget calendar. Tonight's August 10th, the first public hearing on the budget. We will continue these hearings to the 17th, the 24th, and August 31st. August 31st is also final consideration where City Council would be voting on the budget. September 2nd is a public hearing and final consideration for sending the actual assessments for the Road District, Park District, Business Improvement District, and the Tourism Business Improvement District. So we're statutorily required to set those within 30 days of receiving our numbers. And so that is the purpose of the September 2nd public hearing, which is a special meeting of City Council. Very detailed information related to the budget are available through the city's website. This is a screenshot of the city's homepage, and the red box there is the Follow the City Budget headline, where you can follow links to get you to budget documents that are on the city finance department's website and also the city's Engage Missoula budget page. With that, I am going to turn it over to the mayor, and he's going to discuss the specifics of the executive budget for FY21.
Thank you, Mr. Bickle. So what you see before you, ladies and gentlemen, is a spreadsheet that indicates the numbers as they are today. And these are real numbers. And you'll see that we are anticipating a very modest increase in our new tax base as a function of the certified values we received from the Department of Revenue last week. You can also see our motor vehicle and other taxes, non-tax revenues, and transfers, all of which produce a budget of, a baseline of 58,000, about $58.5 million. From there, we looked at our new requests, which were a total of about $5 million of requests from all departments, and made decisions about how to recommend funding to you all in this budget. Our budgeted expenditures this year will be about $61.5 million. We will be funding, with council's approval, $2.1 million in new requests. And among the highlights, we will be able to, this year, make an investment in our fund balance, which means we will get ourselves finally to our fund balance goal as expressed in policy, which should make budgeting in FY22 a little easier. And Mr. Bickle can certainly dig into these numbers a little bit more in more detail for you. I wanted to just give you some of the highlights. Remember that this budget does not increase the city's mill levy. We are not increasing property taxes this year through the collection of mills. Because we had growth in our property tax base, growth in our property tax base, our mill value was less than expected, but we did have higher than expected non-tax revenues. In addition, we are continuing to receive reimbursement through the CARES Act for COVID-related activities, and that's allowing us to maintain our budget and fund these, make these recommendations for funding with no increase in property taxes. Next slide, please. So these are the high points of what I recommended we fund in this budget. $750,000 to the Affordable Trust Housing Trust Fund in our Housing and Community Development Department. In addition, the Missoula Redevelopment Agency will be committing $1 million annually to affordable housing. We will invest over the course of the next year $6.5 million in Scott Street properties to acquire that land and convert some of it to housing, some of it to public works operations, thereby freeing an additional roughly 30 acres, we hope, for redevelopment in that neighborhood that we believe should be housing and mixed use, and will continue to have, I hope, meaningful conversations with the neighborhood about what it is that they're interested in getting done over there. We'll be spending $35,000 to support our 100% clean electricity initiative. It was passed by the council, and we will budget $100,000 for the Learn project, which we believe is a tool that will allow us to better address racism and bias in Missoula, Montana. Next slide, please. In public safety, as I described last week, we'll be adding, with your approval, 2 additional police officers, largely funded through the federal COPS grant. These in the Business Improvement District, one of those officers will be a BID officer dedicated to the downtown beat, and the other will be a forensics investigator focusing on technology, or technological evidence, that is. We have proposed expanding police training in a variety of ways that we mentioned on Wednesday. In addition, we want to expand our body camera program and upgrade some interview cameras so that we're all operating on the same platform. We requested a helmet for each police officer, and we're making investment in matching the grant for the mobile crisis response team. Thank you, Dale. In safety and security, COVID has created a number of challenges. And based on an audit, we have some issues with controlled access to City Hall and an emergency alert system in the event that employees need to be made aware of critical incidents. And that's $112,000. In Parks and Recreation, we are investing $91,000 in a community center project at Lowell School. This is a pretty remarkable collaboration between Missoula County Public Schools, in particular Lowell's principal, and Donna Gockler, our intrepid Parks and Recreation Department Director, to really make Lowell a neighborhood center when school isn't in session, and even when school is in session. And we hope that this is a model that we can take to other schools as well. And then we're also funding $205,000 and change to increase cyclical maintenance for recently annexed parks and green infrastructure on Russell Street. And those are the highlights of what I am recommending for funding. Again, this public hearing will continue this evening and through the 31st of August, when we bump up against the statutory deadline to approve the budget as amended. And I look forward to our continuing conversations about what you all would like to see funded or not funded as we proceed. With that, I will open the public hearing. We have 3 attendees. At the moment, I don't see any hands up among the attendees. All right, well, we will keep the public hearing open, as I say. Any comments or questions this evening from council members? Ms. Hart?
Thank you. I could not find the raise hand function. Mayor, I was wondering, first off, I just want to say thank you for presenting this budget. And now that we have a better handle on what we expect in terms of revenues, I think now some of those questions are going to be answered. One question I do have, you were so good at itemizing all these different new request dollars. The only one that seemed to just was missed was what the cost is to add 2 additional police officers to our force. That was the only one that wasn't itemized.
Well, thank you. And I don't have that in front of me. The COPS grant funds the employment of those officers fully. But I will get you those numbers and send them to all of council.
Okay, I appreciate that. And that pretty much is my only question on this. Thanks.
Mr. Van Osberg.
Thanks, Mayor. Wanted to a clarification and then a question. Mirta Becerra, as chair of the ad hoc committee, and myself worked with Aaron Pehan on the request and Mr. Bickle around the 100,000 around public safety and systemic racism. And I just wanted to clarify for folks that our intent with that, and I believe Ms. Pehan will speak to this Wednesday, is that wasn't exclusive, was not exclusive to the Learn project, but potentially comprehended other activities as well. And I just wanted to mention that. And I appreciate it being in there. My question for Mr. Bickle is if he could, maybe we could bring up the slide on the ending fund balance. I was not tracking that perhaps accurately. It looked like we ended lower, but I don't think that is the case on the ending fund balance, or I was misunderstanding that part of the presentation.
Dale Bickle, let me get to that summary chart. We were able to get to our fund balance target for the first time during FY20, and that came because of 2 reasons. One, we had really good budget performance from our departments, part of which was because of the pandemic, and we productivity slowed, we stopped doing. So we had a lot of budgetary savings, and we also received some CARES Act reimbursements for expenses that were incurred primarily in public safety. So that created, you can see we started the year with $7.1 million in the bank. Our reserve targets require only about a $3.5 million budget surplus. So we are actually ending the year while we are budgeting to spend down our excess cash reserves. We are also holding back some of that because we are anticipating that we're going to need some of that for next year's budget as we prepare for the FY22 budget.
Okay, thanks. I understand it now.
While I have the floor, I wanted to point out to Councilor Harp and everyone at home that all of the information related to the specific costs of our budget requests are on those links, and there is the new requests list has been updated, and so it has every request specifically listed, and what was recommended to be funded by the mayor has been updated on the website. And then you can also go and look at the individual departmental requests on that website too to get those specific costs, but we'll get those specifically for you.
Thank you, Mr. Bickle. Ms. Becerra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too wanted to echo President von Lossberg's comment regarding the allocation that we are now seeing $100,000 to further the goals and the vision of the ad hoc committee to address issues of public safety and systemic racism in Missoula. And also wanted to point out that I believe that allocation can serve to advance and pay for the work that will get us to a more equitable city and to better understand racial discrimination in Missoula. And part of that work is what's being done by the LEARN team, but that's only one of the aspects that I think we'll need to explore as a community in order to address this challenging issue. So just wanted to reiterate that clarification, and also very thankful to see that allocation in the budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra. Ms. Vasika.
Thank you. I was just curious to know, is there any place where we can see where certain departments are trying to make their products or services cheaper, or like, because within, as time goes on, some products or services can become cheaper to provide or to execute. So I'm just wondering if any departments, if we can see how, or if they are trying to lower any of those costs, or if they're trying to reduce any items in their budget. All I'm hearing is that all the budget increases. So I'm just wanting to see if any of the departments are trying to decrease their budget in any way. Is there any way or where I can see that?
So we look for effectiveness and efficiency pretty regularly. And within departments, I think you'll find pretty remarkable stewards of tax revenues and other revenues. We don't keep a running list of efficiencies, but for example, if you were to consider the refunding we did on some of our bonds recently, that produced a savings for the taxpayers of more than $1 million over the life of those bonds. And you'll find that sort of activity happening in all departments. Simultaneously, demand for service continues to increase and expenses continue to increase. So most often you're seeing departments continuing to do the work that they're doing, but asking us for resources to do it better on behalf of constituents.
Okay, so I guess I'm just gonna have to dig into the budget and see where I can see it for myself then.
And Ms. Shira.
Yeah, so I just want to confirm it's on every 2-year cycle that the reassessments are being done. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that will happen next year. So that the reassessment will be done of property values, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I want to just kind of confirm that and put that out there for the public. So we are on the 2nd year of that. And So I really actually like the idea of putting some money away for next year as you have built into the budget, because as I've said in previous meetings, I think that the full fallout from COVID, we are going to get a better idea of next year. And so I think that I just want to make that comment and remind people that we have a reassessment of property values coming next year, but not this year.
Thanks, Ms. Cheryl. Any other questions or comments? Right, seeing none, the budget hearing will remain open. We will move on, ladies and gentlemen, to our item. I'm sorry.
Sorry, point of order. There is someone in the attendees with the hand up. I don't know if that's an appropriate time still to take that comment.
Mr. Decker, I didn't see you during the public hearing, but if you'd like to say something now.
Yeah, I've got 2 points, thanks council, on the budget as it pertains to police funding. I would urge council members to look into a program that was founded in 1989 in Eugene, Oregon, called the CAHOOTS program, which is similar to the mobile crisis intervention program that we are underfunding in this budget. I would propose that all funding increases slated for the police department be transferred to the mobile crisis intervention team, because there is a threshold of budgetary effectiveness there. The CAHOOTS program handles roughly 20% of calls in Eugene, Oregon, and costs only $800,000 to that city, compared to the $58 million police budget that handles the other 80% of those calls. I'd like us to increase the threshold of funding for our mobile crisis response team. I'd also like to urge council to be clear and explain to the public how the results from the LEARN group will be able to be incorporated into the current budget cycle after the budget closes. I'd like folks to have a clear pathway on how we intend on implementing those recommendations once they're found.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. And did I miss folks during the public hearing? Apparently. Ms. Halsell?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I have been listening closely to this meeting and somehow did not hear after your presentation you request public comment. So I must have missed it, or it went by too quickly.
You're just fine.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to comment again, as I am still very angry and disappointed about this budget, but feeling more regulated to comment. I think there's a huge gap, as we all know, in the budget as it's written for the police department as compared to things like housing or the mobile crisis unit or other services. There's an enormous gap between the budget for the police department, for example, and the budget for relationship violence services. I understand that the city does not fully fund that, but that does include domestic violence services and crime victim advocates. It strikes me that we are funding in a reactive manner, right? The police are reactive. The police don't actually prevent crime. The police respond to crime. The police don't prevent issues that come up when folks are dealing with mental health crisis or addiction or a lack of housing and other services. What they do instead is respond to those things. They respond to folks who don't have housing. They criminalize, as does the rest of the criminal justice system moving down the line, issues that ultimately stem from poverty. So when I look at these numbers, I think about, $750,000 for the Affordable Trust Fund. Seems like a good amount, but it could be fully funded if money wasn't being allocated to the police department. $75,000 for a mobile crisis unit when we don't ultimately have anywhere. I mean, questions come up about where somebody else might be able to respond to that initial call. But then from that point, we don't have anywhere else, right? We have a lack of detox beds in this community. We have a lack of mental health beds in this community. We have a lack of housing services in this community. So even if the mobile crisis unit is fully funded and brilliantly implemented, we don't have that next step. So as a person who has worked for now, you know, almost 20 years in mental health services, I know that when I'm working with a teenager or a young adult who is struggling with a mental health crisis, who is suicidal, who is ungovernable in their foster home or their you know, biological home, who needs intervention, we don't have the services in this community other than police officers. And Mr. Mayor, multiple times now you have said, we cannot change these things overnight. And I fully agree with you. I understand that we are playing a long game. But when your budget gives money to the reaction, rather than begins to shift the money to change these things, not overnight, but over the long term, you continue to just fund the status quo. You don't actually fund change. That's a problem. I think council members know where money can be put that can begin to take pressure off of the police and begin to actually meet the underlying needs that exist in our community. And I think you can think creatively without just, again, rubber stamping a budget that says, yay, police, because that's what we seem to do in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Halsell. So I'll note a couple of things. One is that the mobile crisis response is actually modeled after the CAHOOTS program. The city of Missoula's $75,000 is a match to a larger state and federal, state and tribal grant program that Missoula County has also joined us in matching. And it is a 10-month pilot program based on the CAHOOTS model that will allow us to establish data, and that data will allow us to move forward. And my hope is that we can bolster that program. I would do backflips if we could handle 20% of those 911 calls for folks who are in crisis. But we need to walk before we run. We can't have this pilot program be a failure. And so I think we have exactly the right people on the case endeavoring to tip this up. For the last year and a half, I've been sitting on a group called the Strategic Alliance for Mental Illness in Missoula. This is a group of folks from the behavioral health community, from the medical community, both of the hospitals. We have participants who are clients, and we have done a gap analysis around the very beds that Ms. Housel is completely right about. We don't have enough of them. We don't have a treatment center in this community that can manage the capacity of folks who are addicted. As an addict myself, I can tell you that the path to recovery is made one hell of a lot easier if there is access to treatment. And my hope is, my absolute hope is that we can put some solid numbers behind these programs in partnership with some other folks, so that we can get these programs off the ground. And I appreciate Ms. Hausel's comment that this is a long game, and I'd like it to go a hell of a lot faster. But we are chipping away. And in the meantime, sorry, Libby, my apologies. In the meantime, we have needs in the police department that we are identifying today that I think keep the larger community safer. I think our investment in training makes a difference. But please don't misunderstand my support for this police request does not negate my interest in putting numbers to programs so that we can fill these gaps. And there are many in our community, particularly for kids, right? For folks under 18. And that's one of the things that we've been working diligently on with the Strategic Alliance and Partnership Health Center. And that's where the prevention, I think, can happen. Again, this is a lot of work that cities haven't traditionally done. So we're kind of turning on not quite a dime, but we're turning in a direction that that isn't traditional for cities. But I'm not committed to tradition as much as I am to progress and to taking care of people. So just wanted to address those two issues. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, that hearing will remain open. We have one item for final consideration this evening. This item had a public hearing last week. We've held that hearing open, and now it is time for the council to take final action on the item. And that is, in this case, it is there is no action to be had. We are simply acknowledging the fact that we've held a public hearing as required for the Bellagio affordable housing development to ensure that it meets a community housing need. I don't know if Ms. Pahan, if we'd had any additional comment over the course of the week or any additional information you'd like to share with council before we record this commentary and send it along.
Yeah, thank you. Erin Pahan, Office of Housing and Community Development. We have no additional comment or information to present. Would only like to remind the public the purpose of the public hearing, which was to determine the community benefit of the Bellagio, which is a 200 unit low-income housing tax credit development that is going to provide affordable rental homes for Missoulians in our community. And that the comments that have been collected throughout the public hearing process will be provided to the development team, who can then submit those comments to the Department of Revenue in their application to show public benefit.
John, you're muted.
You're muted, Mayor.
That's the best way to hear me. So we'll thank you, Ms. Pahan. We'll send all of that along to the appropriate parties. I'll pass on communications from the mayor. Again, council comments with Mr. Von Osberg.
I'll pass.
And Mr. Contos. Mr. Contos passed. I read lips. Ms. Vasika.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have been getting a lot of emails over the weekend. I think there was about 200 over this weekend alone. This weekend was different from the previous weeks, though. There was many calls to defend the police instead of defunding the police. And I was very pleased to see all those emails. When I ran my campaign to hold this office, I made a promise to all of my neighbors, my friends, and all my constituents that I would not take funding away from the police department because they're already overworked, underfunded, and very much underappreciated, especially today. And I just wanted to throw this out there. I know that the budget hearing is still on. It will be for the rest of August. but I absolutely have no interest in defunding the police whatsoever. I proudly stand behind the men and women in blue. And I think that giving them what they need is very important to keep our society safe, keep them safe so that we can sleep in peace at night. And I just wanted to throw that out there that I proudly stand behind them. And keep those supporting emails coming. I really appreciate reading them and everyone's stories. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis.
Pass.
Ms. Merritt.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the Missoula County Public Schools Board of Supervisors. They are holding a meeting tomorrow night and the superintendent will be discussing the final plans for reopening our schools. So people who have questions about that should tune in tomorrow evening, and you can find the links to attend via Zoom the board meeting on the MCPS website, and bring your questions. I think that the school board and the superintendent have been working really hard on some good plans for our students. And I know this is a very difficult time that we're going into, but they are leaving options open for families to make decisions that are best for them. And I really want to thank Superintendent Rob Watson and the school board for all their hard work.
Ms. Jones.
We have a lot of issues these days in front of us, a lot of news, but I just wanted to go back to the issue of the pandemic, which is still happening, and remind Missoulians that I think currently we have 92 positive cases in Missoula, 4 in the hospital. There are tests that are delayed, so that number is probably higher. And what we're seeing is a very gradual increase in cases in Missoula. And I think we need to work very hard as a community to try and get that flat in terms of no increase or a decrease gradually in cases. So I hope everyone is wearing masks and staying socially distant. I know this is the time when we're all trying to get outside and see people if possible, because a long winter is coming, but it's very important that we keep those numbers down. Missoula has done a very good job of this, but we are seeing a gradual increase, so please work on it. We would like to get kids started in school later this month in some form or fashion, depending on what the school district does. We've got a university that wants to welcome students back, and the lower our numbers are here in Missoula, the more successful that will be for those educational entities as well as businesses. So keep it in mind, wear your mask, stay away from people as best you can. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Yeah, I also wanted to, I appreciate Ms. Merritt's comments, because I do feel like the school board and Rob Watson have been working really hard to come up with a good plan. They've done a great job of communication with us. So I also want to ditto that. And at the meeting last Wednesday, I had a number of questions around the budget and understanding it, and being new to council, well, not as new, but first time going through the budget. I did have some additional questions. So I have had a couple constituents ask me questions. So I just wanted to say in response to some of those that actually 96% of the police budget is salaries and personnel, it's benefits. Those are driven by collective bargaining agreements that are in place. Those are, we approved those earlier this year. So those will run for 5 years. And I just want people to understand that collective bargaining agreements are in place with lots of different departments, and that is a big part of budgeting as well.
Things bounced around here a little bit on me, sorry. Ms. Anderson.
I just want to thank Councilmember Jones for her comments and echo those, and just to ask everyone to pack your patience. Everyone is trying to do the best that they can in these extraordinary circumstances. and we are still in the throes of a global pandemic. And here in America, things are getting worse. And so I just wear your masks. I think we should start calling it physically distance, except for socially distance, because we still want to be social. We just need to have that space. And just, you know, businesses are trying to do the best they can. People in all walks of life, and just if everyone can just have a little bit more grace and patience, I think it will go a long way to getting us through all of this, as well as wearing your mask. So thank you so much.
Mr. Hess.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll pass.
Ms. West. Ms. Becerra.
Thank you. I just wanted to wish our colleague Heidi West a very happy birthday and thank her for all the work that she does to make Missoula a place to live. I too want to thank our school superintendents, Dr. Reisig with Hellgate Elementary and the board for putting in place so many measures in order to provide a safe environment for our kiddos to have a safe return to school. And I also wanted to ask our community to do their best to wear their mask and wear it properly. I have seen so many people who don't wear it properly, and that defeats the purpose. So if you can take just one more second and make sure that you adjust it so that it functions the way it should, that could go a long ways. That's all. Thank you.
And Ms. Hurt.
I want to say thank you to the community of Missoula, and in particular, those residents who live along the Milwaukee Trail, and even more particularly around Trail Street. This summer, I've had the joy and the pleasure of doing what I call night riding. I get out on my bike, it's cool, there's very little traffic to have to worry about, and I hop on the trail and I get to go past various different community gardens, get to see people at home in their own environments doing what we all do, and that's just enjoy life. And I know 10 years ago when that project was, I know it was a long time in the making, but when it finally actually happened, there was a lot of concern that they were opening their back doors and their front yards, for that matter, to just the public, and worried about what might come of that. I hope that in the 10 years since that project was finally delivered, that I hope all those residents take pride in giving something of themselves so that the rest of us can enjoy the beauty and the serenity that comes with being able to get out on your bike or walk with your loved ones and enjoy a trail system that we all really do appreciate. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. We have no committee reports this evening, nor do we have any new business. Are there any additional items to be referred? Seeing none of those. Any miscellaneous communications, petitions, reports, or announcements? Seeing none, as always, I thank you for your service, and we will be adjourned.